All right, guys. Justin just walked into my office with a deal. We're going to use the calculator and just do a live analyzation of a real deal here. Switch over. All right, so on this particular one, I am not going to put the address in because this is a live deal that we are working here in our office, but I will fill out everything else. So we are looking at a 3-2. This particular property is in North Carolina. Square footage is 1,079. A year built is 1933. So because it's older, you got to make sure you really look at your electric and you look at your plumbing and so forth. Make sure that it is all in good shape. He just told me that the population is going up on this one. Rents. So Zillow is telling me 1332. Rent-A-Meter is another software we use. It's telling me 1523. You can sign up for that, but I think they give you some free stuff too, like 5 trials or whatever. Next, we're going to be looking at the interest rate. We always use 12%. It's simply because it's easy to calculate. Let's say you have a $60,000 loan. You know your monthly payment is going to be $600. This is on an interest-only scenario. You pay principal back later. Most of our private money is set up at 8 to 10%. PITI. PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Usually that's what mortgage companies, that's the whole mortgage. So on this particular one, it looks like it's at 670. So we'll plug that in. Did you say this is a hybrid? Or working as a hybrid?
Yeah, there's a lot of equity in it.
Okay, so we're going to run it 2 different ways here, guys. We're going to use this other calculator also. So some of these numbers are going to transpose over, so I'm going to fill them out as we go, and I'll explain why as we get down to the bottom here. Whoops. Come on, John. 23.
It is a nicer home.
Okay.
Somewhat.
All right, so we're going to keep going. So taxes. Taxes, you don't have to have them because it's in your PITI, which is your principal, interest, tax, insurance. You don't need insurance, but it is going to be a sub-2. So because it's a sub-2 scenario with a wrap, we will add another $100 in here for extra insurance. If you don't know why you have to do that, hit up our community. Get on community calls. We do them every Tuesday at 6 o'clock Eastern time, and you can learn why and how we do that. This does not have solar, does not have HOA, is that correct?
Correct.
Does not have any arrears?
Nope.
All right, no arrears. Rehab, it needs $5,000 to $10,000 worth of rehab.
No, that's an overestimate. It's just light cosmetic here and there.
Okay, and light cosmetic.
Like maybe a couple trim pieces and deep clean the carpets.
Okay, so if that be the case, I'm not even going to count that in because typically when we buy properties, we want them rent ready. And if they're rent ready, we're not going to do any rehab unless it's just safety and health things such as smoke detectors, GFIs, things like that. So we're going to leave rehab at 0. Asking price, they're wanting $160,000 here. So we will turn around and do $160,000 on both these calculators. How much they owe? They owe $73,000. Yeah, we'll plug this in. Other loans, we don't have any other loans at this time. And we are not going to do a manual ARV at this point in time, but we are going to come up here and do the big 4. So Justin already did this while he was on the phone with the client. So I'm going to plug these in so you can see what's going on. So we use Zillow. We are going to use Redfin. 847. REI is actually PropStream. It's just Sean Terry's version of it that has been white labeled. So if you have PropStream, that's what REI is. RPR is a nationwide MLS. You have to have a realtor's license to get this, or you can go work up with a buddy or whatever. All right, so using the top 4, the average is about $175,000, so we're going to leave it at that. They're asking $160,000. Okay, that's fine. I like the $15,000 spread there. We're not paying top of the market. We're not getting a super deal on equity-wise, but if it's a terms deal, then this will work. Okay, so let's keep going with this. We're not going to run manual at this time. There will be closing costs, so we use $5,000. The reason why we use $5,000, obviously it's not going to cost $5,000 to close this deal. It'll usually cost maybe $2,000, maybe $2,500. That leaves me a little extra, and that's how I pay Justin. That's how I pay dispositions also. So that's where that comes from. So you're not having to take profit out of the company money to pay the acquisitions and dispo team. Okay, cash to seller, or we're finding out how much we can actually give them, right? Okay. Okay, so the way this is set up right now, if we, in this calculator here in the Sub2, if we pay them nothing out of pocket, our cash flow is $512 using the 1332 rate, okay? But now over here, because this is a hybrid. What is a hybrid? A hybrid is when you take a subject to, meaning they have a mortgage in place and you're going to wrap that with a subject to, and they have a lot of equity. So in this particular situation, they're asking 160 and they only owe 73. So they've got $87,000 worth of equity in this thing. Okay, that's a lot of equity. So now is where we want to structure. Can we do a hybrid? And the hybrid side of it, the other side of it is seller finance. So one side of it is Sub2, the other side of it is seller finance. You put it together, it's called a hybrid. So this calculator here is telling me that right now, I need to put in here on this one, I need to add in, I need a $400 positive cash flow. That's what I like to look for. That's on this line here. This tells me that I can only afford to pay them $112 a month or a lump sum of $11,000. That's kicking this out at 12%. Now, let's say I'm going to pay them 3%. If I pay them 3%, now I can afford to pay them $149 a month or $14,950. So let me just back up a second here. At 12%, typically that means I'm going to go out and get private money. And I'm going to pay them $11,000 because I got to pay my private money lender. Okay? But if I turn it into seller financing, sometimes we'll even get this at 0% interest. If I get this at 0% interest, I can afford to pay them $1,602, paying it out over $162 every month. Now, does that look like a deal for the seller? Probably not, okay? But let's play with this a little bit. This whole calculator here is using the 1332. Let's take that out, and let's say we can get the 1523. Now, if you've watched any of the other episodes with the calculators, when we sell this back off with a lease with an option to purchase, we're going to turn around and add $100 to $250 to the highest rent. So we're going to stay conservative, and we're going to say we're just going to add $100 to that rent. Now that changes things a little bit. If you can do seller financing at 0% interest, now you can afford to pay him a total of $45,300 or $453 a month until paid in full. Did you catch that? You can pay him $453 a month until paid in full. Nowhere did I mention anything about putting interest in, and I didn't put a deadline on it. It's till it's paid in full, okay? That's how you sell that. With this, that's going to be about the maximum we can do on this. And he has $87,000 worth of equity. He's probably not going to take the deal because that means he's going to have to discount this. Let's see, I'm at 45. He's going to have to discount $42,000. So at 160 is what he's asking. Minus $42,000. I'm going to be at a purchase price of $118,000, guys. That's how I would analyze this deal at this point in time. But let's take it one step further. This is why we put this calculator together. This is a live deal that he is talking. Are they on the phone right now? Okay, perfect.
That would have been funny though.
So this would be a live deal. So he's supposed to call this person back. So you probably don't have a deal here unless Justin can use his skills and get this guy to drop $42,000, which is possible. So let's go over to the next calculator. The next calculator is doing a novation. So they're asking 160. So we'll plug in 160 here. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Dispo and we're going to ask them what they can sell this thing for. But because we're not going to do that right at this time, we're just going to keep analyzing. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at the lowest scenario here on the comps. It looks like it's 165. So I'm going to put in here 165. I don't like that, but I'll use it and I'm going to show you something. Usually I take 165 and I take 10 grand off that, but then we're actually paying less than what we actually bought the property for. So in this particular calculator, what you're seeing is we do have to pay a realtor's fee of 6%. We do have concessions of 3%. What are concessions? Concessions is where you're going to help the buyer pay down either their interest rate or help them with their down payment or help them with closing costs. Now, you got to realize that when you're doing novations, you are selling to an end buyer that typically is going to move into the property. Now, that's not always 100%. Sometimes you will be selling it to an investor, but most of the time it's an end buyer. In this calculator, you are going to have some closing costs. So we have $2,000 worth of closing costs. We also put in here $5,000 worth of rehab or repairs. The reason why we do that is if the new buyer brings in a FHA or VA and we have to do some repairs such as smoke detectors or GFIs or whatever, it comes out of this $5,000 because we have to do it. So if you look at this deal here, it's a $16,000 negative. So you don't have a deal here either, okay? Again, this $160,000 is going to have to drop quite a bit because Zillow's saying it's only worth 165, and we all know that Zestimates aren't worth a shit. Okay, so realistically, I would probably be looking at wanting to put this in at 155 and go from there. Now it's a $25,000 negative, so it doesn't work. Let's go one step further. We'll use our last calculator. Maybe we can get lucky. Let's find out. Guys, so let's take it one step further. We're going to take it down to the wholesale basis. You'll see that all these numbers dropped from up here. This needs about $10,000 worth of rehab. So we plug in the square footage, which we get from this number right here. And we're putting in $10 because we already know it needs about $10,000 worth, $10,000 worth of rehab. So these numbers over here, if we buy this at 50% of ARV, which we're using this ARV at this point in time, it's going to be this number, but this is 50% minus the repair is where this number comes in. If we do that, we're going to make $54,000. If we do it at 70%, it's going to be at 50% minus repair, so we can offer them $111,000. As long as your flipper, let's go over to this section here, if you sell it to the flipper at 75% of ARV, the flipper, after he takes out repairs and he takes out realtor's fees and closing costs that he will have to pay, he will make approximately $19,000. Is that a deal for your flipper? That depends on who your clientele is that you're selling to. But let's just take this one step further. If I'm only paying $111,000 here, let's go back up here to Novations and say I do the same thing, and I'm just going to use round numbers, so use $112,000, and I'm going to sell it for the $155,000. Now this is a whole different story up here because now I can make $22,000 and I have $4,600 of slush fund up here. You may not use concessions, you may not use repairs. So this $22,000 could go up to low 30s, okay? My team, I like to see this number at 30 before the slush fund, okay? So we need to see if that will happen or not. But either way, I would much rather do a novation over trying to sell it to a flipper, and you're going to have a lot more clients out here doing this scenario than you will on the flipping standpoint of a wholesale. So if you're going back, this particular deal is a very skinny deal because I don't think you're going to get this gentleman down from $160,000 to $112,000 to make the deal work. Again, over on this scenario, you're going to have to get him down $42,000, which I don't think that's going to happen. You're going to have to get him to 118. Let's just plug in 118 here just to run it across the board and see where we're at. So 118. I'm still guessing I can get this thing at $155,000, guys. We haven't done hard comps on this yet, so this is still a guess. A lot of times I will go to my dispo team and say, hey, what can you sell this property for? I will have them run these manual comps and see if I'm in line when I'm doing this guesstimate here, okay? Again, looking at this, when I put 118 in here, now I'm only making 16,000 with a little bit of slush fund. Again, I'm giving the seller more than I am down here at wholesale. To me, I would go back in. I would still try to do the creative deal, see if you can get him down, but he's only going to put $45,000 in his pocket over time. If not, then I would move over to a novation and work that way. Guys, if you like the calculator, click the link below and you can get it for free. If you have more questions, sign up for our community. We have that every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. You can ask any questions that you have. If not, feel free to book a free call with me. I'll be more than happy to sit down for 30 minutes, try to analyze what you're doing in your business, see if I can help you in any way. Same time, let's put some mailbox money in your hip pocket.